up guys, the Anime Titan here, back at it again with another What If, and today I will be doing What If Naruto had all the tailed beasts. Now this series has been out of commission for quite a while, and I've decided that I should probably start wrapping it up. So anyway, last time we left off, Naruto had just decided that, you know what, dinner. He had went upstairs, washed up, and had come back down for dinner. So anyway, let's go ahead and skip through the night and get to the next morning. Although Naruto's curse mark had been sealed up by Jiraiya, Naruto had decided that, you know what, screw it. I'm gonna take advantage of the opportunity that I have now. The curse mark showed me that I rely too much on chakra itself. So I'm thinking I'm gonna work harder on my taijutsu and maybe some kenjutsu. Naruto would then remember the knuckle knives that his uncle Asuma gave him. He decided that this was the perfect time to actually learn how to use them. Naruto would then quickly go downstairs, eat his breakfast, sprint back upstairs, brush his teeth, all of that jazz, and then sprint out. Naruto's adoptive mother would then yell after him, "Naruto, where the hell are you going?" Naruto would yell back saying, "I'm going to find Uncle Asuma, Mom," as he'd continue sprinting down the road, Naruto's mother would just end up shaking her head in the kitchen as she would wonder, where does he get all this energy from? Naruto would then continue sprinting as he'd think where his uncle could be. Most likely he was at the barbecue shop right now. So Naruto would quickly sprint his way over to the barbecue shop and burst through the doors. He'd look around and see nothing. No smoke, no weird haircut. And would quickly leave. He'd wonder where else his uncle could be, as he'd think of the Jonin Lounge. He'd sprint over there to see that Asuma and Kurenai were both missing. Naruto would see Anko, however, as he'd quickly run up to her and ask, "Sorry to bother you, Miss Anko, but do you know where my Uncle Asuma is?" Anko would have a devilish smirk at this, as she'd tell him that, yeah, he's in an apartment not too far from here. I can give you the address. Naruto would smile as he'd thank Anko and sprint off to the address of the hotel room that Anko had given. We flash to Anko's point of view. Anko would be smirking devilishly as she had just given Naruto Kurenai Yuhi's Shinobi house, not Shinobi house, but Kurenai Yuhi's apartment number, as well as the building. Naruto's point of view. Naruto had just made it to the building and started sprinting up the stairs. He'd quickly knock on the door and he'd hear soft groaning. He'd wonder what was going on and wonder if somebody was, beating down on somebody else, as he'd quickly kick down the door and sprint through the house. He'd make it to the bedroom as he'd pull out a kunai and hold it to a man's neck. Asuma would then immediately freeze as he'd say, "Who the hell's there?" Naruto would then say, "Uncle Asuma? What are you doing here?" "Well, I know you're here, but why are you..." "No! Uncle Asuma! What are you doing?" Naruto would yell as he would have looked down to see that both Asuma and Kurenai had, nothing on. The classic tale of how children were made. Yes, let's just go with that, shall we? Anyway, Naruto would quickly jump out of the bedroom with Asuma telling him to go to the living room and sit down. Naruto would oblige as he'd quickly sprint out to the living room and then jump into his mindscape. Naruto would be sitting down on the floor of the living room in a lotus position and then still go to the mindscape. He would be basically pacing back and forth within the mindscape, wondering what the hell it was that he just saw. I mean, they covered the basics of how kids were made in the academy, but what the hell was that? Why did he have to witness it so diligently? Naruto would then be pacing up and down as the Biju would as well seem distressed. They didn't want their Jinchuriki and or host little brother, father, whatever he is at to them at that point of time, to have noticed something this dirty so quickly in his life. Naruto would have waited for another 5 minutes before finally speaking. What the hell was Uncle Asuma doing here anyway? I thought he was single. The Biju themselves would look at Naruto as they shrug, saying, your guess is as good as mine. Naruto would then start pacing back and forth again as he'd say, do you think he paid her? As he'd continue walking up and down. He'd then think to himself that, nah, Uncle Asuma's not that cheap. But then he'd continue pacing back and forth as he'd continue thinking, saying, so it's one of two things. It's Uncle Asuma's secret girlfriend, or it's a lady that has been picking up every once in a while. Which one? He would think as he'd continue pacing up and down. Naruto would then continue pacing up and down as he'd feel a sharp tug at his collar as he'd be dragged back to the real world. When he'd be back on the real world, he'd feel a sharp pain on his on the top of his head as he would quickly rub it. He'd look up to see Asuma having a smoking fist, meaning that Asuma had just punched Naruto on the head. Naruto would look at Asuma as he'd say, what the hell was that for? Asuma would then say, you barged in here without any notice. Kurenai would be in the back blushing up a storm as she would have wondered how much Naruto had personally seen. Naruto would then say, you can't damn blame me. I was looking for you. Anko said you were here. She didn't mention anything about anybody else. And when I reached the door, I thought someone was being abused. So I kicked down and tried to help whoever was inside. Naruto would say as he'd his face would turn red, and then he'd reply with, and then I came upon that. Asuma's face would then turn red as he'd quickly bonk Naruto on the head again, saying, you could have knocked. Naruto would then say, I did, but I heard that in reply. Asuma would then turn beet red as he'd say, fine, why were you here anyways? Naruto would then say, I'm asking questions first. A, who is she? B, how do you know her? C, is this going to be permanent or just a one-time thing? And D, do I need to tell Grandpa? Asuma would then panic as he'd say, okay. First off, Kurenai Yuhi, Jonin Sensei. 2. Can't really answer that one. 3. Not a one-time thing. I'm planning on making it permanent. And 4. No, you are not telling Hokage-sama. You are not telling Dad. Naruto would then chuckle, saying, oh, looks like I've got some blackmail. Asuma would then sweat drop, wondering, why the hell did the child turn out like this? Kurenai would then step in, saying, hi, it's nice to meet you. Naruto would then look at her and say, so, you're my auntie. Not a bad choice, Uncle Asuma. Not a bad choice. She looks pretty too. Kurenai would blush at this as Asuma would then look at Naruto, telling him that, see, I know how to pick him. Naruto would then quickly kick Asuma in the stomach and say, well, seeing as she's Anko's friend and I'm Anko's friend, that makes her my friend. Due to some unrelated issues, Naruto would say as he'd absentmindedly reach his hand over to his shoulder. This is something Kurenai had picked up from Anko, as well as Anko would absentmindedly reach over to the curse mark. Kurenai would wonder what the hell was going on as she'd quickly intervene and say, why are you reaching over to your neck? Naruto would quickly retract his right hand, saying, it's nothing. Don't worry about it. Kurenai would look concerned, and Asuma as well would wonder why Naruto was acting like this, as he'd say, "Something's up, Naruto, and you're not telling me what's going on." Naruto would then reply with, "Nothing's up, Uncle Asuma. It's just a bit of a shoulder tension, that's all." Asuma would then say, "No, I know shoulder tension when I see it, especially when it comes to you, who doesn't get shoulder tension so easily. So I'd like to know what's going on." Naruto would then slowly back to a wall as he'd say, "Nothing's going on, Uncle Asuma. You don't have to worry about it." Asuma would then quickly close the distance between him and Naruto as he'd grab Naruto and pin him to the wall. He'd slowly pull Naruto's jacket to the side as he'd see a tattoo? Asuma would then ask Naruto, "Does your mom know you have a tattoo?" Naruto would say, "Yeah, mom knows, but it's not a tattoo." Kurenai would immediately then storm over as she'd have a closer look at it and say, "Yeah, he's right, that's not a tattoo. That's a curse mark, the same as Anko's." Naruto would flinch hearing that Kurenai actually knew about the curse mark. Naruto would then say, "So what? It doesn't matter. It's nothing. It doesn't bother me at all." So anyway, Uncle Asuma, I came here to get some training in my knuckle knives. You gave them to me as a present, and I never really knew how to use them, so they've kind of just been lying in the back. Asuma would then look at Naruto with a stern face, saying, "Does Dad know about this?" Naruto would say, "Yeah, he knows, but he doesn't want a lot of people to know, so kinda had to hide it." But anyway, what are you gonna say about the training? Asuma would look at Naruto as he'd say, "I guess I don't have much of a choice. Okay, I'll get you down at your favorite training ground in a while, okay?" Naruto would nod as he'd quickly walk out of the room. Well, not the room, but the apartment. Asuma would flop down on a couch and wonder what the hell happened. Kurenai would see Asuma's distress as, she'd ask, "What's wrong?" Asuma would then say, "That child always does stuff like this. Even if he's in massive trouble, he's always hiding that problem, that pain. It's annoying sometimes." Kurenai would then say, "That just means he's trying to be strong." Asuma would then say, "Yeah, but who knows how long that'll last before the child breaks. He can't be strong forever." Kurenai would then see a side of Asuma that she'd rarely ever seen. The kind and caring side. The side that actually made her, well, the kind that he'd only mostly showed to her and his family. But this seemed more. Not like a sort of love that you'd have for your father, your father or your mother or even your wife. It's a deeper love. It's a bond, like almost between two brothers. Kurna would smile as she'd say, "Anyway, you shouldn't keep the poor child waiting. He's gonna need that knuckle knife training if Anko's curse mark is anything about if what I've seen from Anko's curse mark has anything to do with what is happening to his." Asuma would look confused as Kurna would say, "If the curse mark's not sealed, doesn't allow the user to use his chakra network without influencing him. It causes massive amounts of pain if the user uses chakra. And I'm guessing since the seals on Naruto, that he can't use his chakra network either, and that his taijutsu is gonna have to go up a lot." Asuma would then realize that she's right. Naruto's gonna have to work his ass off on taijutsu. Asuma would then give her a small kiss as he'd say, "I'll see you again later," and he would disappear. He'd then reappear at the training ground and wait another 5 minutes before Naruto would arrive. Asuma would look at Naruto, telling him, "You're late." Naruto would then tell Asuma that, "I'm trying to work on using my abilities without chakra, okay?" Asuma would look at Naruto as he'd say, "I'm guessing this has to do with what Orochimaru did, doesn't it?" Naruto would flinch as he'd say, "What? No, it's nothing. I can still use my chakra to its full extent. It doesn't damage anything. It's been sealed, so, yeah, my chakra's still fine. I just want to learn how to use some taijutsu. And weapons as well. Asuma would then look at Naruto and tell him, okay, sure, then show me a jutsu. Naruto would then flash through some hand signs as he'd say, fire style, fireball jutsu. And a fireball would come out without causing Naruto any pain at all. Asuma would look for Naruto to show any signs of pain, but there wouldn't be any. Asuma would then nod, saying, okay, well, let's get down to the basics of these knuckle knives then, shall we? Naruto would smile as he'd say, yeah! Asuma would then show Naruto for the next, month, how to use the knuckle knives and influence chakra with it properly. So, for the next month, Naruto would be training in, sorry for the pause anyways, but Naruto would be training in the knuckle knives, as well as taijutsu department. Asuma would be helping him with the knuckle knives, and Jiraiya with the taijutsu, seeing as Jiraiya is one of the best taijutsu users, besides Might Guy. But Night Guy would be too busy training nobody. I'm joking. Guy would have helped Naruto with his taijutsu. Jiraiya would have just given a bit of a help here and there, just giving a pointer, a bit of sticky advice that, just a little bit of help. But anyway, Naruto's taijutsu would have increased to low Jonin level taijutsu, as well as the use of the knuckle knives. So, Naruto would have learned how to channel the Biju's chakra through the knuckle knives, meaning he could use Matatabi's sand, Matatabi's fire, Isobu's water. He could use Son Goku's lava. He could use, it's Son Goku, then it's, I think, Kokuo? Yeah, Kokuo's steam release, as well as Saiken's acid. Then you've got Chomei's string. That's right, my people. Naruto can cut you and then tie you up using Chomei's string. Y'all get fucked. But so anyway, by the time that the final of the Chunin exams would arrive, give me a second, guys, I've got on a fly. So anyway, when the finals would arrive, it would be match up Naruto versus the person he had to fight in the finals. Now I'm screwing with y'all. I'm gonna mix and match the matchups a little bit. Naruto versus Gaara. Sasuke versus Tamari, and then the winner of the two fights, the winner of the first fight fights winner, the second fight for the finale. So, let's get into it. Gaara would, body flicker his way down into the arena with a massive turret of sand. Not a turret, but a tornado of sand. So anyway, Naruto would do the same, but instead of sand, it would be blue fire. Matatabi's fire. The proctor would ask, are you ready? Both contestants would nod as Naruto would walk closer and shake Gaara's hand. This would surprise would quite literally surprise everybody from the sand. Seeing as Gaara shook somebody's hand without killing him? What is this madness? Naruto would then smile as he'd say, let's have a good fight, Gaara. Gaara would then nod as he himself would back up, and Naruto would do the same. The proctor would then yell, begin, yet again, as Gaara's sand would quickly charge straight at Naruto. Gaara knew that if Naruto really wanted to, he could get rid of Gaara's sand by manipulating it himself. And everybody was wondering why Naruto himself had a similar gourd to Gaara, only smaller and on his side, and why he wasn't using it. Gaara had decided that, you know what, I'm gonna try this, as he would manipulate his sand to surround Naruto. Something Naruto didn't expect. It would basically just be a sand tornado twirling around Naruto, containing him on the inside. This gave Gaara a bit of time to focus, as he would channel more chakra and start to manipulate the sand in Naruto's gourd. Naruto would feel the sand moving slightly as he'd quickly throw away the gourd, and then channel some wind chakra into his, after flashing some hand signs, as he'd say, wind style, great breakthrough. This was my speak is gone. I speak not for rech. Anyway, Naruto would rip a hole right through the sand tornado as he would then charge at Gaara with his knuckle knives. Gaara's sand would quickly retreat to defend Naruto as Naruto would lace his knuckle knives with wind chakra. He would then start cutting straight through the sand defense as the sand would be cut, but they'd still be moving and reforming. This would annoy Naruto as he'd decide, screw it, I'm gonna amp it up. He'd then start channeling Matatabi's as well as wind chakra into the knuckle knives as the heat would increase significantly. He would then start turning the sand that he cuts to glass and would smile, saying, "Look now, Gaara, I'm gonna beat you." Gaara would smile as he'd quickly back away from Naruto and then start flashing through hand signs. He'd then say wind style, wind scythe jutsu. The wind would then quickly cut towards Naruto, but Naruto would put out his knuckle knives in front of him as it would collide with a wind blade or wind scythe and it would cancel each other out. Gaara would smile as he'd then quickly start forming sand shuriken, which would be hurling at Naruto. Naruto would be expecting this as he'd quickly slide beneath the sand shuriken and start sprinting at Gaara. Gaara didn't expect this, but would have decided that, you know what, he's gonna bring the sand shuriken back. The shuriken would now be running, not running, but would be coming at Naruto from behind, as Naruto would continue running. He would decide that he needs to do it, as he amplifies his speed just a little bit by funneling 5% of his chakra to his legs. He'd quickly shoot forward and get right in front of Gaara as he would then cut through the sand barrier yet again, and this time slip in Gaara's guard. The sand shuriken would stop as Naruto had reached Gaara, and this time he had his knuckle knife to Gaara's throat. Naruto knew that this was actually just the sand armor, as he was expecting Gaara to do something, and he was correct. Gaara would immediately step out of the sand armor with maintaining his shape as the sand would start wrapping around Naruto's arm. Everybody thought that Gaara would destroy Naruto's arm, but it actually wasn't happening. Gaara had just tightened the sand enough to loosen Naruto's grip on the knuckle knife, and Naruto, he decided that he needs to react to this. He'd quickly channel wind chakra to his throat, as instead of letting out a turret of flames, he would let out a gust of wind straight from his lungs, as he'd spit a volley of air, ripping through the sand on his arm as it would blow away. Time, 22 minutes. Okay, so anyway, Naruto here would be really super happy as he would be backing away from Gaara and say, "This is a good fight so far, Gaara. You got anything else up your sleeve?" Gaara would smile as he'd make his sand rush at Naruto yet again. Naruto would have thought this was predictable, as he'd quickly maneuver to the side of the sand. But what he failed to realize was, the sand had an explosive tag in it. Just as it came to the side of Naruto, the explosive tag would detonate, sending Naruto crashing into a wall. Tamari would have leaned forward over the railing, wondering if Naruto was okay, as Gaara would smile, saying, "Come on, Uzumaki, I know you're not down. I know that you're stronger than this." Naruto would then pull himself out of the crater as he'd say, "Damn, Gaara, I wasn't expecting that." Gaara would then smile, saying, "With you, nobody ever expects anything, so I had to prepare myself to fight one of the most unpredictable people I've ever met." Naruto would then smile as he'd say, "Well, Gaara, I wasn't expecting anything less." Naruto would then charge at Gaara once more, but this time he decided that he really needs to resort back to jutsu. He'd flash through some hand signs as he'd say, "Fire style, Phoenix Flower Jutsu." He'd spit out a volley of fireballs as it would head towards Gaara. But there was something different about these fireballs. They had a slight tint of blue near the outside. He had laced them with at least 0.001% of Matatabi's chakra to increase the heat ever so slightly, without wasting too much of his own chakra. The fireballs would hurl towards Gaara as Naruto would flash through another set of hand signs, as he'd weave wind style, gale palm. He'd outstretch both his palms as two gusts of wind would hit hit the fireballs, increasing them in power, size, and speed. They'd be hitting to Gaara faster now. As Gaara would then raise his sand defense to defend, the fireballs would crash against it, turning Gaara's sand to ice. Well, at least glass. They look the same in Naruto. Y'all can't tell me that. When you saw Haku using the demonic ice mirrors, I thought it was glass. Bruh, like, I legit thought it was glass. It's so clean, it's so see-through. Bruh, it looked like glass. But that's not the point. Let's get back to it. Naruto, the outer layer of Gaara's sand would have been turned to glass. Gaara would have been pissed off at this, seeing as he was running low on sand, and decided that he needs to pull that technique. Gaara would quickly start concentrating his sand in a odd formation, as it would form a tiny Shikaku. Gaara would then smile as he'd say, "Naruto, you know what Shikaku is capable of when he's controlling sand, so I'm gonna let Shikaku take this one for now." Naruto would jump back as the tiny sand Shikaku would open its sandy eyes. This not weird, but this creation would charge at Naruto with a evil grin on its face. Naruto wasn't quite expecting this, but he welcomed the challenge. The Tanuki would charge at Naruto, outstretching its sand arms, trying to claw at Naruto, swinging its tail viciously, all while Gaara was in the back, preparing more sand as well as a jutsu. Gaara decided that the only way he's gonna win this is if he can get off one large-scale, super explosive jutsu. Gaara decided that he needed something powerful. So, while the Tanuki was attacking, Gaara had made more sand, and fed some of it to the Tanuki to make it bigger. Gaara here would have been really happy with the result. The Tanuki would now be at least twice the size of Naruto, and he would still have a large amount of sand left. Gaara would then start flashing through hand signs, as he'd say, wind style, vacuum bullet. He'd shoot it at Naruto with the sand enveloping the bullet, and then the sand would start rotating the bullet, causing it to be almost a sand-style Rasengan. It would end up hurling its way towards Naruto and not hit the Tanuki, but end up going right through the Tanuki and hitting the wall right beside Naruto. It would blow the wall to pieces as Naruto would be sent hurling across the arena. He'd barely recover his footing and land before Gaara's sand would be upon him, trying to capture his entire body. Naruto decided that it's now or never. He'd jump into the air, high into the air, as he'd flash through a chain of hand seals. He'd then yell out fire style, fire dragon jutsu, as a blue fire dragon would roar to life, coming from Naruto's mouth, heading straight towards Gaara. Gaara wasn't expecting this and quickly commanded all the sand to guard him. The sand would quickly make a shield above Gaara, a dome-like shield above Gaara. As the fire dragon would hit, the fire dragon would make contact and turn every single piece of that sand to glass. The dome would then fall, encasing Gaara within the glass dome that had been created, as Naruto would smile, saying, "You're trapped, Gaara, and this glass is really thick, so I doubt that you're going to be able to break it with a kunai. I know you can make more sand, but that's going to take you a lot of time, so you might as well give up." Gaara would then nod as he'd raise his hand and say, "I give up." Orochimaru physically would be seething as he was now in the Kage booth, pretending to be the fourth. I think the fourth or the third Kazekage. I think the third Kazekage. So anyway, he'd be seething, wondering what happened to Gaara. Where's the bloodthirsty monster that he needed to come out? The proctors would then call the next match, saying Sasuke Uchiha would Sasuke Uchiha and Tamari, please come down to the arena. The two would oblige as Tamari would flap her fan open and then glide down, and Sasuke would use a lightning-style body flicker to make it to the ground. The two would then start their ferocious battle, with Tamari constantly throwing Winjutsu after Winjutsu at Sasuke. During this time, Sasuke had picked up a couple of extra techniques from Kakashi, being quite dangerous techniques. Sasuke had decided, you know what, he's gonna play to his strength, as he'd quickly flash through some hand signs and yell out, Fire Style, Fireball Jutsu. A massive fireball would leave Sasuke's mouth as it would head straight to Tamari, who would flap her fan, quickly trying to get rid of the fireball, but it would have no effect. The fireball would get larger and move faster, as it had absorbed Tamari's wind and would be heading straight for her. Tamari knew that she couldn't do anything else, as she would dodge it, and send a ferocious couple of wind jutsus at Sasuke. Sasuke would smile as he'd flash through another set of hand signs, yelling, Fire Style, Phoenix Fireball, Phoenix Flower. Ugh. Gosh, I can't speak. Phoenix Flower Jutsu. A bunch of tiny fireballs would head straight towards Tamari, this time taking up the wind again. But Tamari couldn't avoid this one and would have been hit head on with five medium-sized fireballs, forcing her into a wall and into unconsciousness. That's where I'll be ending off this part. I know it's super short and you guys want to see what'll happen between the two finalists, but I think most of you will be able to predict where this is heading, and I hope that you enjoyed this part. Don't forget to go down to the link in the description and also join our Discord. Hope you enjoy. Anime Titans signing out. Peace, you lovely maniacs.